For the 100th episode of the ASP, we sit down with our good friend Liam from Cloud City Cast to discuss Cowboy Bebop. Enjoy. Welcome to the Animation Station Podcast, episode 100.
Dang!
My name is Josh.
I'm Gavin.
And today we're joined by our good friend Liam from Cloud City Cast.
Hey y'all, what's going on?
And today, for our 100th episode, we are going to talk about probably the most influential anime of all time.
That's definitely, arguably correct. Definitely in America,
And
for sure.
today, so without further ado, we're going to be talking about the anime classic Samurai Pizza Cats.
What?
Now, what? We're not talking about Samurai Pizza
We need
Cats?
record scratch right there.
We're not going to do Samurai Pizza Cats?
No, I don't know what that is, man. It sounds intriguing.
Well, I watched all of Samurai Pizza Cats.
Oh, you watched the wrong show, buddy.
Oh, what were they supposed to watch?
Cowboy Bebop.
Oh, it's Cowboy Bebop. Okay, I remember that show. Well, now my Samurai Pizza Cats knowledge is useless.
Should I take away your notebook?
Yeah, just get rid of
Throw
those
it
notes.
away. Okay.
Here,
Man, I was
just-
super excited for Samurai Pizza Cat, but
We'll just
I
rip
guess
these notes. Just rip them off.
I was the only one that watched Cowboy Bebop.
Yep. Yeah, I did Samurai Pizza Cats. So just throw the notes away.
Right.
we were supposed to watch Cowboy Bebop. My bad. I watched Outlaw
Cowboys and
Star.
Aliens?
Cowboys and Aliens. Did anybody watch that movie? Jon Favreau?
Yeah,
Jon
Favreau did.
Well, he had to.
Right.
He had to be there and send him and be like, "Yep, I made this movie."
Oh man, dang it!
No, I don't think Harrison Ford watched it.
Yeah, he
I
probably,
don't think
he
he watched
probably
it.
doesn't even remember making it.
Alden Ehrenreich watched it because he was like, "I'm going to watch every movie with Harrison Ford."
No, I guarantee he did not do that because there's some real stinkers there.
Like The Fugitive. Did you think he watched The Fugitive?
He may have watched The Fugitive.
He's like, you stole it, just so you could have what? I don't remember from Fugitive.
You do a killer Harrison Ford, man.
So Cowboy Bebop.
Yes.
Tangent already.
Yes.
This is going to be an episode full of tangents because Josh didn't take a nap. So, the reason that we did this was our first episode was Cowboy Bebop the movie.
Episode
so
1,
we thought that's usually what first episode means. Episode 1.
Just agreeing.
But so I decided for this one it would be good for our 100 episodes to go ahead and bring it back to its roots and do Cowboy Bebop the series.
I like it.
And then for episode 200, I'm sure the Cowboy Bebop live action will be out by then, so we could do that.
Here's hoping, I guess. I'm not really into all the live action remakes of animated things, but I'd watch a Cowboy Bebop live action movie.
But Christopher Yost is doing it.
Who's Christopher
Is
Yost?
it still supposed to be Keanu Reeves?
No, that was
that was
movie
when it was
from,
2008.
2008.
Yeah,
Oh, thank God.
He's going to be too old at this point.
He's too old now. No, I don't know. He's
I don't think
making
he
those stupid
ages,
John
though.
Wick movies.
I don't
Which
know.
they're not stupid, man. Those are actually super enjoyable. I was impressed with both of those
They
movies.
killed a beagle. I don't like that.
Well, I never enjoyed that, but I mean, the fact that he literally kills all these people because they killed his
Theon
dog,
Greyjoy
pretty
killed
awesome.
the-
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like he's still
Didn't they kill that?
viable.
Didn't they kill like that woman in there, who's like that female assassin? Didn't they like shoot her in the head?
And they shot a lot of people in the head. He literally shot everybody in the head. Yeah. Even after he shot him in the chest, then he would walk over and shoot him in the head as well.
Double
You
tap.
got to make sure.
Always got to make sure. Don't
Yeah,
want
this is
zombies to
true.
come back.
See, I feel like
Right.
he's still viable as a action hero, but I don't think he's viable as Spike Spiegel, which is who everybody wants him to be. At this age, maybe he could play Jet, but I don't think he can play Spike because
No.
he's just too old.
He doesn't have
Yeah.
a deep enough voice set for Jet.
I mean, you don't have to match the voice.
I just-
No,
I
but
didn't
you-
say-
an
I didn't say you have to
impersonation.
be Bo Billingsley. I'm just saying it would be good to match that.
I don't know. He's got a raspy, kind of husky voice with a
I
little
don't know.
surfer
He's
tinge to
in
it.
Bill and Ted.
Well,
He's going to be in that again for whatever reason.
really? They're doing another Bill and
Yep.
Ted? Wow.
Yep.
That's
See,
because
I
the
would've-
world
I
is
would've
obsessed
picked,
with sequels.
I would have picked Michael Clark Duncan, rest in peace, but I would have had him be Jet Black. That would have been rad.
Oh, that would have been cool. That would have been cool. So who would you then cast if we're doing a live action?
Johnny Young Bosch.
Let's just go fantasy right now. Who would you cast
Johnny Young Bosch.
in a live action?
Yeah.
Cowboy Bebop.
Really?
And who would you cast him
I
as?
love Johnny. Like, don't get me wrong, but I don't know. I don't see him as like
Lynn.
being able to carry this type of a film. You know what I mean?
No,
Yeah.
no.
I agree.
Oh shoot, that one dude from that. Never mind.
Okay.
I don't know his name. That one where they have to go like the 27 stories or whatever. That like. Never mind.
I didn't see that.
See, there was at one point I thought Tony Jaa would have done really well with it, especially after watching The Protector, and they did that like long fight scene as he goes up the stairwell. Like no cuts, just the longest fight scene. I always thought that would be kind of BA, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I think Spike Spiegel, you have to have like have to have a certain savviness to your approach, like that character, and it has to have like this not. You can't be ostentatious. Like you have to be very reserved, but still be confident. And I just don't know what actor out there today really exudes that type of persona.
I almost feel like these characters are so iconic, you almost don't want to go with established names. You kind of want to go a little bit like the Star Wars model, where you just pick people that are not really famous and bring them into the starring roles.
Right.
Because I feel like, yeah, I mean, there are some names that have been thrown around for years, but I don't know. I don't think any of them really work. So I feel like if they just went out and they did a casting call and just really focused on let's pick the right person and forget about star power, I feel like they would do a better job casting it.
Did you guys ever watch that Into the Badlands TV show?
Yeah.
Have you seen that?
What's his can't remember his name.
Daniel Wu?
Daniel Wu. I was thinking Donnie Wu, but then I was thinking Donnie Yen.
Donnie Yen. But Donnie Yen is another pick for me. I could see Donnie Yen pulling it off, but I think Daniel Wu, I loved him in Into the Badlands. He was literally the only reason I would continue to tune into that show. So I don't know. I think he would be another really good pick. But I think Donnie Yen, because he does have that like quiet confidence that I think would work really well. But I think people, because the way that Cowboy Bebop was broadcast on Adult Swim, I think people would expect a certain tone of voice, and you would expect it to not be accented. So you would have to try to find somebody that either didn't speak with an accent or somebody that could still have that.
Daniel Wu, he doesn't speak with an accent.
Right, but Donnie Yen does.
Yeah.
So like that to me would be part of the balance.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Have
true.
hair. Even if it's
you can
not
have a
like the
wig.
full.
Well, Donnie Wu does, or Daniel Wu has hair.
Yeah,
he
it's
just
kinda
keeps it cut
though.
short. Well, he can grow it out.
Like if he could grow it out, even if it's just like a little grow out and then like a little floof type thing, that would still look good.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just got to have hair.
Yeah, his hair is a big part of his look.
It is.
His hair and his shoulder pads.
And his big shoes.
And his big
They're
shoes.
They're very rounded, those shoes.
Yeah, that was very...
And you got to get that walk down. You got to get that slouch walk.
Yeah.
You got to somehow...
He's got that long,
improve on
slender
that.
cowboy kind of walk, you know?
And Donnie Wu's not that tall. Damn it. Daniel Wu is not that tall. He's like 5'11".
I don't know who that is.
I think the guy from Into the Badlands. Because the kid is about the same height as he is. So I don't think he's tall enough.
Anyway.
I don't know.
I think it's a challenge. That's one of the ultimate
would you do for
challenges is to live cast Cowboy Bebop. Like it's
the
impossible task.
Like, do you put Faye in there?
I go back in time and I use a younger
can't.
Carrie Ann Moss.
You can't.
A younger Carrie Ann Moss.
Yeah.
You have to use somebody now.
Trinity forever, man.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't
Best
know.
actor in that movie.
I don't know enough.
Who's the girl from Scott
People.
Pilgrim versus the World? The Mary Elizabeth Winstead.
That could work.
Yeah.
That could work.
Elizabeth Olsen?
I don't know who that is.
Scarlet Witch from Avengers.
Yeah. Cut her hair short?
Yeah,
Maybe?
I mean it's. I could see that as a possibility.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They'd probably do someone like Scarlett Johansson, though. She's already been the major. They're just
Maybe.
like, throw her in.
There you go.
Maybe.
Why not? We'll just continue washing these characters right out. It'll be fine. Nobody will be upset about this.
The easiest casting is going to be Ein.
Well, sure.
Easiest casting
Sure.
by far. Is
Yeah, just find a corgi anywhere.
It's like, we need a Welsh corgi.
Yep.
Gotcha.
A Pembroke.
Does it need
a Pembroke
does
Welsh
it need to look
corgi.
a special? Be like,
Yes.
Just has to have
gonna
a,
be smart.
just has to have a fat old butt.
Yep. And red eyes.
No, I think that honestly, I think there's certain characters that it's not so much like the actor or actress. It's more about just the way they portray the character. Because you think of a character like Ed, where I mean, for the entirety of the series, everybody was always like, "Is it a boy? Is it a girl? I don't understand." You know. So like, if you can. It's not so much about getting like the voice right, but just the androgynous of the character, and then to portray it in a way that it feels familiar. Like, it doesn't have to be spot on. Like, I think that's the biggest thing with the whole Han Solo movie is people are expecting like, oh my gosh, he better sound just like Harrison Ford. And it's like, no, as long as it's like the essence of the character, I'd be okay with it. So like with Faye, with Jet Black, with Ed, I think with all those characters, as long as you have that the feel of them right, I think you'd be okay. With Spike, I think that one's the hardest one to cast out of
like,
absolutely.
The only way that you can, like, because you have to build around Spike.
Sure.
It's not going to be one of those where you cast everybody else and then you're just like, I have to wait on Spike to cast him. It's like, you have to cast Spike first.
I agree.
And then build around Spike.
I totally agree with that. You know, Watanabe created this story around Spike. It was he was the first character that he came up with, and so everything is kind of revolving around him. And I agree, and I also agree with what Liam said. And I think if we look at Cowboy Bebop the movie, you know, it was made 3 or 4 years after the series ended, and it's a little different than the show as well. You know, it feels a little different. It kind of captures a lot of the essence of Cowboy Bebop, but it kind of does its own thing. So I think if they do a live action, it'll kind of be one more step removed. You know, they can kind of capture a lot of the essence of the show, but for them to try and do like an exact, like faithful representation of the show is nigh impossible.
Well, here's the
I
thing,
think it's
though.
tough.
If you do this, what do you do with it?
Meaning,
like, do you do the 26 episodes that we have?
no, I would do a movie personally.
Really? I
wouldn't
would
do a
series.
show.
Like Netflix?
I would do a series because I think you can get more. Yeah, I think you can get more on a series than you can with a movie.
Yeah.
Because here's the problem with the movies, especially what they do with anime movies. They try to take something that is like what they did with Full Metal Alchemist. They take something that is 2 to 3 seasons, like 50 episodes worth of content, and they're like, jam it into an hour and a half. And that's what they do, and that's why they're always atrocious. Like the Attack on Titan movie, they're like, okay, we're going to take a season of an anime, which is 20-something episodes, and we're going to throw it into 2-hour movies.
Right, but when they do
And
things like that, aren't they trying to like give you the whole backstory and the origins and like cram it all into one thing? Where I think if they did a Cowboy Bebop movie, they could just do a story like they did in the animated movie and not have to tell you the whole story of all the characters.
Well,
just do a little movie.
Well, unfortunately, I don't think that's going to draw in, because like you don't want just the anime audience. You want like people that aren't familiar with Cowboy Bebop to come see this. Like people that are, you know, sci-fi fans. Like you want that Star Wars crowd to come in and watch your stuff. So you want those people. Like you want a Manoa to come in there and watch your show. But
Sure.
I don't think you can get that if you're just like, oh no, yeah, you guys already know these backstories, you know these people. Whereas if you do a Netflix series and you do 12 episodes, you could do an episode where, you know, kind of like what we do in start off in episode 1. Like you don't have to have the backstory for each of the characters right then. You can have it go, and then like the season finale would be like a backstory of Spike leaving the Syndicate, and then at the end you have that shootout with Vicious in the church, and then that's the end of your first season.
So
and
you're going to do a retelling is what you would want to do.
Yeah, I mean, otherwise, what are you going to do?
Well, I don't know. I think if you just retell it, though, it feels too redundant. I almost feel like I almost want this as a one-shot. Like, give me 2 to 2.5 hours of just solid film. And as long as you give me enough about, like, the Syndicate without having to give, like, all of the backstory. You just build it up that, yeah, Vicious is your main villain. You have to include Julia because you have to have that love triangle. You have to have some nods to Jet leaving the ISSP because you need to have the whole concept of, okay, well, the police force is not sufficient to keep the galaxy in line, like these other planets in line.
Right.
So that's why they're hiring bounty hunters. And you have to show to some degree that Earth is uninhabitable. And that is why we've colonized other planets. And that could be something as simple as like a 2-minute voiceover during your opening while you're showing like, hey, here's ships in space. Or maybe you start it with
just tiny.
Yeah. Or maybe you start out with the shootout. Like you start out with the shootout between Spike and Vicious, and then it's like 2 years earlier, So like you already know we started with the shootout, and then you draw the curtain back, and you're like, okay, here's Jet, here's Spike, here's Faye. You don't have to do the whole meetup like, oh, let's pick up each person along the way. It's like here's a crew that already exists, and you understand that like this is the crew together. Otherwise, it's gonna be too reminiscent of Guardians. Like, hey, let's pick up one person along the way, and it's not gonna feel as individualized as it needs to. I'd almost prefer to jump right in like, here's your backstory, here's your crew, here's their mission. Spike has to have the shootout with Vicious at the end. Ambiguous ending in case it blows at the box office and we can't do a sequel, but ambiguous ending so that if it does well enough that we can continue on with a sequel.
Well, why don't we do this then? Why don't we, because we know that Jet and Spike have been together for 2 years before the events of Bebop. So why don't you just make it the Jet and Spike show? Like, you can call it Cowboy Bebop the series, but you don't have Ein, you don't have Faye, and you don't have Ed. You can maybe you could maybe show Faye out there, but they're never going to run into her.
So,
or if they do, it's very in passing. But it's basically going to be Jet and Spike learning to be bounty hunters. Because, I mean, Jet just came from the ISSP, and Spike just, like, got shot to hell from the Red Dragons.
Right.
So, I mean, have the two of them, be picking everything up, everything goes, and then that's what you make. Like, if you're going to do a series, I think that would be a good first season. And then you're like, all right, here's
season
2 years worth of history.
Yeah, here's season 2, here's
you can
Faye.
introduce everybody else.
Or season 2, here's Ed. Season 3, here's Faye. You know what I mean? Like, you can introduce, maybe the first season is just Jet, Spike, and Ein. Like, you introduce Ein.
Yeah, they can pick Ein up.
Or you pick Ein up in, like, the last episode, and you're like, oh my god, they found Ein! And then you're like, but where's Ed? Where's Faye? And then maybe you get those in season 2 or 2 and 3 or however. I don't know. I think there is a way of doing it. I really liked the way that they handled Altered Carbon on Netflix. I thought that was done really well. I thought that they covered enough of the book and then made enough changes that you didn't know exactly how it was going to end. You kind of assumed it was going to be close to the book, but you didn't know definitively. And I feel like with Cowboy Bebop, you have to toe that line where anime fans are going to come in and not be hypercritical of it and not be able to completely guess everything that's going to happen along the way, but it has enough nods and Easter eggs to keep them happy, but then also enough information that you're not overwhelming the people that already know the story, but you're giving enough to introduce the new fan, like you said, the Manoas of the world, to this story, to keep them invested for your merchandise, your toys, your sequels, all of your spin-offs. And then, if it does well enough, maybe you go back and you do when Jet Black was still in ISSP, or like when Spike was still part of the Syndicate.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you do that 2-year gap, that would be the perfect time to do an episode backstory. So, like, you could do an episode backstory. Like, the first episode, I would assume, would be your episode backstory with Spike. And then, like, episode 5, you would have that same thing with Jet.
Oh, no, dude. Check it out. So, you start the first season, Spike is still part of the Syndicate. So, it's like, your whole first season is just him in the Syndicate. Jet is still part of ISSP. And, like, Jet is trying to like, hunt down Spike as part of the Syndicate, and like Spike doesn't even know that Jet's after him type thing. And then in the second season, like, maybe it's like Jet is just after somebody, he doesn't know it's specifically Spike, but you kind of get the idea that he's the one that he's after. And then towards season 2, when they both leave their respective positions and they join forces, there's always this unspoken thing that the audience knows that Jet was going after Spike, and it's only a matter of time before that comes up. that he's like, oh yeah, I was actually supposed to bring you in, and that fractures their friendship. To me, I think that'd be a kind of that'd be a BA season. Fantastic. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. See, and I like all of these storylines that you both are coming up with. I really think they're intriguing. But the ultimate question for me comes down to whether or not I want a live action thing to happen at all. And I would like to see those two stories play out, the two that you guys both presented, but I'd prefer them to be animated.
Oh, for sure.
I just want them to do more animation, because this is really one of my very favorite animated things ever. And, you know, the idea of doing live action can be neat, but to me, this world exists in the medium of animation, and that's where I want it to stay.
Well, it's one of those where Shinichiro Watanabe doesn't really go back and complete things. Like Bebop was an exception. Like he doesn't you don't do anything else with Space Dandy. You don't do anything else with like Samurai Champloo. You just kind of you put it out there, and then there it is. Like that is like Bebop again. With that's just the exception, because you're like, well, we have a ridiculous franchise. We need to try and cash in a little bit more on it, and so they cashed in a little bit more on it.
Right.
And that's how we got the movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know if. I don't know if Sunrise would do it again.
Yeah, and I don't think they will. And ultimately, to be honest, I don't think they need to. Like, there are some great ideas for some stories and some prequels, and you know, more that we could see. But I don't need anything else. I think what we have is pretty near perfection.
Yeah.
Personally.
No, I would agree, because I'm with you. This is easily one of my top 3 animes of all time, and it is one of those ones where, like, maybe every other year I go back and watch the series in its entirety, including the film. Like, that's one of the best parts, is like, here's a movie that happens in the middle of the series. Well, I mean, it's closer to the end, but because it's what, episode like 22.5, like 20, it's like 20 between 22 and 23. So I mean, I like that, and I prefer finite animes. So I like ones that have that concrete ending. I mean, even though this one has an ambiguous ending, it's still, you can watch these 26 episodes and that's it. That was one of the things that was so frustrating about like Naruto, is that the first like 99 to 100 episodes like involve the story, and then the next 120 episodes after that is filler bullcrap that you're like, really, 220 episodes and only the first 100 have any relevance to the story. So it's like, I like that same thing. That's why Trigon's my number one. You know, 20, I think it's 28 episodes,
something like that.
Concrete episodes.
Same with Outlaw Star too. Outlaw Star's like, we got 20-something episodes.
Yep.
Nice.
And that's a lot of those old anime. Like, those old, really good animes are like, we're doing this many, that's it.
Well, what was it? Like, I had a friend that got me into Tenchi Muyo when I was a kid, and I dug it at first, and then they did that movie Tenchi Muyo in Love that was, like, super brutal, and I was totally thrown off because I was not expecting it to be as, like, violent as it was. And then I found out that there was all these, like, crazy, stupid spin-offs from that, and I was like, oh, apparently I don't like harem anime, so this is not going to be my bag. But as, like, a primary introduction, I enjoyed it. But, yeah, I mean... Full Metal Alchemist, like the first series that had only like the 51 episodes, like those are the types of anime that I dig. And I think with this one, easily, like, it's not just the fact that it's finite, but the characters, like each individual character is so intriguing that's like, yo, I'll watch 26 episodes just of freaking Ein. I don't even care. Like, it's just, they made a Corgi an important character, like an important part of that film, of that series. So yeah, I'm with you, Gav. I think that this exists in its most pure form as an anime, but I'm that keep moving forward dude that it's like, hey, let's see what somebody else's spin on it. Like, if somebody literally gave me the reins, it was like, hey, Liam, I'm going to have you direct a live action TV show for Netflix. Like, I would totally do the idea that I'd pitch where it's like, yo, let's do Spike in the Syndicate. We'll do Jet in ISSP, and we'll build up to them eventually becoming friends and then feeling betrayed by one another. No, when you eventually find out where they both came from. Like, to me, that alone, before you even introduce the other characters, would be kind of cool. And I would love to take a crack at it, or somebody that's better at directing than I am.
Nice.
So, on that wonderful bombshell, I guess let's go ahead and talk about the anime.
Yeah, let's do it.
Because we kind of didn't do any of that.
We've been talking hypotheticals this whole time.
Yeah, so we've got let's just kind of go into the characters.
Okay.
Let's go. Who's everybody's favorite character in Cowboy Bebop, Gav?
I think it's Spike for me. I really do love Ed. I love her character so much. I think she brings a wonderful balance to the show that it kind of needs at that midpoint in the season when she arrives. But yeah, I mean, it's all about Spike. He's the man.
Liam?
Well, honestly, this is kind of a tough toss-up because Spike was that character that I want to be. Like, if I was going to, become the live version of an anime character, I always thought Spike was so cool. He was so BA. So I really dig him, but I kind of identified more with Jet, as a character, not just because I have a sweet beard and his is crazy. But also one of my friends from way back in the day literally looks exactly like Spike, like to the T, like the hair, thin, lithe body, likes martial arts. The only thing is that he could never shave all the time, so he always had crappy peach fuzz on his face, like a really bad baby goatee. So if he kept his face clean, he literally would have looked like the physical embodiment of Spike. So Mike Capicelli, if you're out there, you freaking looked just like Spike. I saw a picture of him the other day and he still looks like him, just with a dirty mustache. So I mean, to me, I was like, I would love to be Spike, but there's obviously other people that actually look like him, so I gotta go with Jet. And Jet Black's story, to me, I think it's kind of sad. You
gets his arm.
Well, yeah. You just feel for him, and he's that guy
by his partner.
Right, but he's that guy that doesn't mind being the second fiddle to Spike. Like, Spike is the hero without wanting to be the hero, and Jet's just there to bail him out, and I just dig that.
Yeah, I feel like he's the character that we don't get enough backstory for. Like, we don't really get a fully fleshed out backstory for him, and I feel like that's. Plot-wise, that's one of the only things that I find wanting in the story.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, because you have, the whole series is, and mine is Spike, by the way. You have the whole series that is basically Spike. Mm-hmm. There's, 5 episodes that are primary Spike Syndicate episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Then you get Faye. She's got,
There's 2 or 3 Faye-centric backstory ones,
Ed's another character where we're just okay, here's Ed, and then we get her backstory when she leaves.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
See, the thing with Faye is I super dug Faye because she felt like a female Gambit to me. Like, when they first introduced her, because she very much was like that thief, couldn't trust her. She was the, I don't really need you guys, so I can go on my own and do my own stuff, but then there are times that I still need you guys. But I don't know. I've never been a huge fan of fan service characters, and I feel like they leaned kind of heavy into hypersexualizing her, and I almost would have preferred her to just be a very confident woman without it having to be let's put her in slim fitting, negligee all the time, or in the movie when they had I can't think of the villain's name, but Vincent, thank you. But when he cuts her blouse, and you're like, why? There was literally no point for them to do that. It was just blatant fan service. So two deductions for Faye, and then Ed just always threw me because I was like, is it a boy? Is it a girl? Come on, freaking tell me.
Right. I mean, I agree in a way.
On that last one was there was nothing with Jet. I was just talking about character development.
Oh yeah,
character backstory episodes.
Right.
Oh no,
right.
They didn't do anything for him. Just the quick conversation with him with somebody else that was still ISSP, and he was like, "Hey, you'll give me a little bit of information."
Some of those, and then they had the whole bit where his partner double crossed him,
right?
And shot him in the arm and made him lose his arm.
But maybe,
and he thought it was super cool. Be a assassin guy who it didn't end up.
Right, but I think that's why it would be cool to use him as the basis of a live action. If it's the character we know the least about, it's less likely that you're going to go off canon to give him more of a backstory. So
yeah,
but yeah, no, I think both characters are. I think all characters are fantastic in this show. To be honest with you,
I agree. I think they came up with an amazing balance with this cast. They give you kind of all shapes and sizes, all kind of they've got strong males, strong females, a kid, a dog, and they all kind of play different roles. I think the character design is really cool in this show. It's weird sometimes. When you have, for shows like, let's say The Simpsons or Family Guy or Futurama, something like that, right? You have a group of characters that you see in every single episode, and they're always wearing the same clothes, right? But those are always kind of like farcical, silly shows. But when you have a more gritty, like realistic show like this, and they're wearing the same clothes in every single episode and it never changes, I always kind of feel like, God, you guys must stink a lot.
Right.
Like they're all locked up in this tin can in space and they're all wearing the same clothes that they've always worn. I just feel like, God, that's probably kind of dingy in there.
They wash them.
I guess, but we never see him. We see him do
them.
other chores.
We show them do laundry. We show Spike come out in the t-shirt and then put his
shirt
on.
I don't know, but there's just long stretches where they haven't had time to do laundry, and I don't know. That just always strikes me. But I like what they did as far as, dressing them up in ways that kind of speak to their character as well. I think obviously the most iconic, of course, is Spike, and this show came out in the last great era of shoulder pads, and he's got that cool lean physique but with that triangle shape because of the wide shoulders and the straight shoulder pads and that big kind of weird double-breasted open collar on his jacket.
It's very Lupin.
It's all just very it is very Lupin, and it's just so cool looking though, and when he moves, when he fights, it ends up being so aesthetically neat, and in kind of a cinematic way. And I think they did a great job with all of it. Even Ed and her little like cut off t-shirt, spandex shorts kind of thing, where she's just like, I just want to be comfortable and free, all the time. And I love it. I think everything they did with the design of the characters pretty much works. The only thing that bugs me is how Faye's like overshirt or whatever that she wears, like draped down to her elbows all the time, like that just kind of bugs me, because it's like that's got to be restricting to your movement, and she wears it down like halfway down her arms all the time, and I just want to like pull it up over her shoulders and like free her arms a little bit, or like take it off. Like it's just like halfway in between, and that just, it does drive me nuts sometimes.
So in what was in X-Men, was it Apocalypse? Yeah, X-Men Apocalypse, Olivia Munn plays Psylocke, and the costume that they had built for her originally was very reminiscent of like the actual comic book, with like the crotch slit like way far up the thighs, like high onto her hips. So the first time she went to meet like James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender, I want to say, it like broke in the middle. So it's like, it's like, oh, okay, like this is the most embarrassing that could possibly happen. I'm like, see, that's exactly what would happen with these outfits. They're completely impeccable. I love Spike Spiegel. There is no way you'd be able to form that level degree of martial arts in a frickin' 3-piece suit. Like, I'm sorry, it would not happen. There's no dress pants on earth that have like that amount of unrestricted mobility. So, to be fair, I mean, he would just have a ripped crotch all the time, like trying to do those kicks, or like.
I mean, also like Faye, like her pants aren't ever buttoned.
Yeah,
right.
Like, all the time.
They're held up via suspender.
Yeah, and her non-existent hips.
Oh yeah, she doesn't have those. She can somehow keep a gun like behind
in
her
there
back.
somewhere.
Where?
Where did that come from? Exactly. Yeah, I mean,
it just kind of like
maybe the year is 2071, so maybe suit fabric technology has advanced to the point where you can.
Maybe it's like Star Trek, where
do
like
aerial splits and not rip your pants open.
It's like Star Trek. Maybe they all have like Velcro.
Oh, maybe.
So like in the original series, it was all Velcro on the stuff. So maybe just pop that Velcro on there.
Okay.
And then she's just got Velcro back.
But let's remember, in 1985, they thought that we were going to have like jackets that could automatically dry us off, and shoes that automatically like laced and tightened around our feet. So, that was 30 years before the 2015, and we didn't get any of that crap 3 years ago. I'm still waiting on my hoverboard that I don't have. So I'm going to go ahead and say from now till 2071, yeah, we still aren't going to have that.
Yeah, it's like Faye, like we were piecing it out. Like Faye's been in cryogenic sleep for 54 years. She would have had to have been frozen last year in order for Cowboy Bebop to take place. And it didn't happen.
We can't.
Yeah, so we're not there technologically speaking.
Right?
No.
Or like even in Akira, when they're like, oh, 1998 or whatever, you're like, no, this isn't it at all.
Way off.
Oh, no, it's 2020 because it's during the Tokyo Olympics.
Is it?
Uh-huh. That's why Akira is so cool Akira is so cool because they're having the 2020 Tokyo Olympics,
right?
And the Olympics this year next year in 2020 are in Tokyo.
That's too funny.
Nice.
So yeah,
that's cool. So I do want to mention one other thing with character design. Jet grows whiskers higher on his face than any other character ever because his beard basically comes right up underneath his eye in those two little points. I think that's really kind of weird.
I love his scar.
He's got a cool scar
with the
metal piece,
like metal bandage thing that's like always there. That's like, I guess it's like keeping his cheeks together so he doesn't. I don't know why, because it's a scar.
Well, no,
It's not gonna like burst.
Well,
open.
no, I figured what it was is he probably shattered his orbital. So that it's literally holding his eyeball in place. It's like, oh, here's a metal plate so my eye doesn't fall out like a crazy. And I love that scar. Like, I was always like, man, how come I get scars everywhere but like perfectly over my eye? That'd be so cool. And I loved it because like, I don't know about you all, but my beard literally goes like right up under my eye. So like if I wanted to shave it into like the jet lines, I could do it.
You should do it.
Liam, that you have to do that.
I'm going to go ahead and say no because in an anime it looks great. In real life, not so much.
Come on, dude. Do it for Halloween. You have to do it for Halloween.
He also has to somehow like make it go out.
Oh no, that's easy. You just have to use beard wax. And like as you grow the length.
But it's like this far out though. It's like a couple inches.
No, that's not a problem. Oh yeah, no, I could definitely do that. I will try to find a picture of me when I had like a much longer beard, and I'll show it to you guys, and you'll be like, "Oh yeah, he could easily spike that out, spike that out to be reminiscent of Jet." If I can convince Brittany to finally watch the entire series and be Faye Valentine, and then have Remy dress up like Ein, just put him like in a little dog suit, or actually,
I was thinking Ein,
or actually because he has the sweet curly hair, he could actually pull off Spike. So if he's Spike, I'm Jet, and she's Faye.
That would be pretty cool.
So maybe Halloween this year, if we can talk them into it, talk Brittany into it. Remy will go for whatever.
Yes. Yeah, we need to work on that.
Dog.
We do, and she is a corgi mix.
Corgi.
She just still has her tail because we're not savages.
Right? Mine's a corgi blue heeler mix, and I didn't cut her tail off.
You're not a savage.
She was a puppy, and I'm like, no.
Yeah, I don't know what you guys are talking about.
You cut corgis' tails off to make them have that little nub.
Why?
Because people are awful.
Aesthetics?
It's the same way that they do with boxer ears when they pin them up.
Dobermans.
Basically break the
they cut
and like pop them in like
they cut the ear to make it more pointy because Dobermans have floppy ears, but you cut it and then you wrap it with like popsicle sticks and you tape them up and you leave it like that way until they stay, and that's why they have the creepy pointy ears. That's not natural for that dog.
Well, modern canines are not natural anyway. They're all science experiments.
Well, so are we though.
Just like mine.
A little bit.
It's a science
anyway,
but with the introduction of like that, like Ein as a character, when you really think of like the way that it's introduced, that pretty much it's like a MacGuffin because it's like it's in a briefcase. We gotta get this, and it's like I thought that episode was going somewhere completely different, especially with like the weird tall basketball player guy that had undergone surgery to not look like the way he was supposed to look. I don't know. There was there was a whole lot of aspects to that show or like to that episode like that just threw me for a loop. And then at the end when we're like, oh, we get this cute little corgi, I was like, yeah, I'm still on board. This is amazing.
Yeah, that is kind of a weird episode.
I like how they kept him too.
Oh, heck yeah.
They're just like, hey, I guess we got to keep it.
Well, he can
another mouth to feed.
Yeah, right. But he can hack things. Like that's amazing. That's like, oh, it's an adorable little dog that can also hack computers. Yeah. Okay.
He only hacks one computer, though.
That's all you need.
Yeah, but I think you get the impression that he does it more often. They just don't show.
Right.
Yeah. Just
every
Yeah.
episode is a montage of him just hacking a bunch of different things, which leads me to like, why didn't they just have him hack like a bank to move funds over to them, and then they're like, now we're not broke anymore? Because literally every
Because
episode,
they're not thieves.
yeah, but literally every episode,
they're cowboys.
yeah. Oh, well, except for Faye, she's very much a thief.
Yeah, Faye would do it. She didn't
Right.
think about
No,
that.
apparently not. She was too busy friggin' what was that crap they were always trying to eat? It's like all that they ever had was like, wasn't it like,
Oh, bell peppers and beef.
yeah,
without the
there you
beef.
go, bell peppers
Yeah.
and beef without the beef. Yep, that's
Yep.
it.
It's like, Jet, this is bell peppers and beef.
Where's the beef?
It's like, we can't afford beef, Spike. It's like,
I
nice.
like the one where they get the crap ton of shiitake mushrooms,
Yes!
and he makes shiitake mushrooms like 6 different ways.
It's very much like Forrest Gump. Like, we got shrimp. pilaf,
Yeah,
scampi,
exactly.
shrimp. Yeah.
Exactly.
We got baked mushrooms,
Well-
fried mushrooms, sauteed mushrooms.
On the topic of characters, though, I think there are a group of characters that are pretty integral to this show that we haven't mentioned, and I feel like the
guy
ships
in the
themselves.
Nebraska cornhusker hat.
No. I feel like the ships themselves are in many ways characters in this show. Kind of like, I don't know if you guys both watched the show Firefly, but I feel like the Firefly itself in that show was so integral.
I'm sorry, the what?
The Firefly?
That's not the name of the ship.
Wasn't
It's
it called the
Serenity.
Firefly?
It's a Firefly class.
You're right. It's Firefly class. Serenity was the ship. But I feel like the Bebop and then their individual ships, they play such a role in it. You know, it's like it's their home. It's their means of transportation. It's their means of protecting themselves. It does, you know, they do so many things in all these ships. And I really dig them. They're all very uniquely designed, which I kind of think is cool. It's like they all came from, you know, different makers, probably different eras of ship design. And, you know, I think what they did is kind of like this hodgepodge motley crew of ships that kind of reflects their own motley crewness as a crew. And I dig these ships, man, especially the Swordfish. I love
The Swordfish too.
Spikes.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Such a good ship.
His
Yeah.
looks like it would be like he just came with, like, he brought it with him from the Red Dragon, because
Yeah.
it's a red ship meant for fighting,
Yep.
meant
Right.
for messing people
Yep.
up.
Yeah.
And then you have Jets, which is more
The Hammerhead.
you know, it's an older, you know, Milford, and then
More
you
utilitarian.
have exactly, and then you have Faze, which there's a lot of ships that look like
Oh,
Faze
what was
in the
hers?
series,
Uh-huh.
like especially when they're like zoom zoom zoom. What was it? It was
Red
the
Tail. The Red Tail.
Yeah, so there's a lot of them that have that same design. So hers is the newer ship,
Yeah. Yeah,
which
I
I
agree.
mean makes sense because I mean she's only been alive for like 3 years, or in the future for 3
Yeah.
years.
Yeah. But I kind of like how, you know, it's like every few episodes something happens to the ship and they got to, you know, use their resources or their know-how to kind of fix it. You know, it's like they're taking care of this other character. And I don't know, I love the way that because I feel like in a lot of ways we could walk around the Bebop and kind of know where we're going. You know, we kind of know the lay of the land.
Well, you say that, but there's not a lot of you really only spend time in like 3 places on the Bebop.
Yeah, you got the main room with the kitchen off of it, you know, where they're the most. But then you got the hangar, and then so there's that wheel section as well, like
where the artificial gravity is.
Yeah, the artificial gravity, and off of that is where all the quarters are and like the bathrooms and stuff. And I don't know, I feel like I could go there and pretty much find my way around.
I think, was it both of our number 1 ships?
The Bebop?
No, it was my number 1 ship.
Yeah, I don't
The
think.
Bebop was?
I don't know what.
Yeah.
Did we do spaceships or did we just do vehicles?
I think we did vehicles, but I
Yeah,
think
I
it was
don't
my number
remember.
1. Or if we did ships, I don't remember. But yeah,
We'll have to go back and
I
listen.
think it was my number 1.
Yeah.
because it's a dope.
I
little
think
thing.
mine was Porco Rosso's biplane.
Nice.
Because I love it so much.
So like when you think about, and that's one of the things, because you guys know me, I always love dogfights. Like Star Wars, those are my favorite sequences. Return of the Jedi still is one of my favorites because of the dogfight sequences in that. With this, I mean, even just Spike and Faye's dogfight is so phenomenal, and the way that they utilize the Swordfish too, the way that what was her ship, Red Tail? Was that what it was?
Red Tail.
Yeah. The way that they utilize her ship, like I always enjoyed those scenes. So to some degree, like those ships were characters. The Bebop was absolutely its own character. But I think that what was it like? Is it the first episode where it's the girl pretending to be pregnant and she has like all the vials under her dress? So it's basically on Antonio Banderas and Salma Hayek. I really liked. Like even like in that sequence, like just the utilization of ships where it's like, it's the future, it's space, but yet every ship feels familiar. Like there's something, I don't know if it's just the design work or because they gave them like fish names, like if there was something about it that always made it feel like these were possible. I think that's what I always loved about it.
I agree. The whole show has kind of that gritty realness to it that, it's the whole storytelling and aesthetic is, based on noir aspects and Western aspects and, classic cinematic themes that we all kind of know and find familiar. So it all seems like, it is on the near horizon of possibility as far as, personal ships and, space travel with gates that allow us to travel between the planets really quickly. It's all stuff we've seen in science fiction before, and this is an example where they give it a very lived in, experienced feel. Everything's got a little age on it and a little damage to it, so it doesn't feel all slick and bright and new and what a lot of people think of as kind of like science fiction, in like that kind of clean, like purely theoretical way. So I agree, and I think the ships they lend such a cool realness to the whole show and a weight to it. And I agree, man. Those dogfights are awesome, and there's several really good ones. So we've talked about the characters. Do we want to talk about the general story of this show?
About the story. I do have a couple problems with the story, mainly with Ed. And it feels like a character, they brought her on and then didn't really know what to do with her until they let her go in the last episode. That's when she gets her backstory, and that's when she leaves. It just seems like they didn't really know what to do with Ed. They were like, she can be the hacker. Be like, okay, what else can she do? She kind of stays on the ship, and that's about it. So she doesn't really do much. There's like a couple, like there's the chess episode where she does something, and then there's the episode where she gets mushrooms. And those are like the only two episodes that she really does anything. Everything else, she's just kind of like there. I mean, I guess I kind of understand why, because you need to put some levity in
she's
it.
the comic relief.
But it's also like, I mean, I get that she's the comic relief, but there's enough zippy one-liners from everybody else on that crew that I don't feel that you need the comic relief. But
it was one-liners without like the actual like break in the seriousness of the show. I think especially the scenes whenever Vicious is brought back into play, the show takes a very dark turn. And I think that even with the zippy one-liners, they're still so almost like deadpan delivered that you don't get that break. And I think that's why you need Ed, is you need Ed to break up not the monotony of it, but just like the feeling of impending doom throughout like the entire series.
Well, you say that, but we have like the first time that we meet Vicious, Ed still has 5 episodes before she gets there.
No, I know.
Then the second time that we meet Vicious, Ed is on the crew, but she doesn't do anything. She's stuck up in the ship and does absolutely nothing. There's no funny parts with her, anything like that. And then the next time we meet Vicious, she left the episode before. So, I mean, there's really... I understand what you're saying, like, why you would need a character like that. But at the same time, she's not in any of those scenes with our darkest character.
Right.
She doesn't really...
But no, I'm saying... But I'm not saying just in the Vicious episodes. I'm saying throughout the entirety of the show. Like, there is always, like, this dark cloud over every single episode. And like even the writers talked about that it was very difficult for them to write the humor aspects of this show, because so much of the content lent itself to be morose. So having a character like Ed enabled them to be like, okay, well, here's the one character that can pretty much always be goofy. She's barefoot. She's walking on her hands. We don't know if it's a boy or a girl. Like, you know, even she, like, what didn't they talk about in her little backstory episode that like even her father forgets the sex of his own child. So it's like, you know, is her name Francois? Like, what is this character? And so I think that little bit of a mystery and then the comedic approach that they had to her, I think that helps break up the story to some degree. Because otherwise, when you think about it, other than the flashback vicious episodes and whatnot, so much of this story is like, okay, well, this session is only going to be, okay, well, what's today's bounty? Okay, what's today's bounty? And they're always watching that show like, here's the big bounty for today. Cool, we're going to go after that one. So it's like, yeah, you have this overall arc, but each episode is so self-contained that that's where you need Ein to be. And that way, when you do go back into those episodes that focuses on vicious, you go, okay, well, now we can focus on the dark because we've had these moments of levity throughout those other episodes before we get here.
I mean, yeah, I can understand. I understand what you're saying again, but yeah, I don't feel like you need her character because I mean, you did 9 episodes before she even got there, and then like in probably one of the funniest episodes, which is the one with Cowboy Andy. Yeah, she has 2 lines in that whole entire thing.
Yeah.
So I mean,
well, I mean, she's not a major character. You know, she's only in small parts of. You know, except for the one show or the one episode where it's her backstory and she finds her way back to that home with all the kids. But other than that, you know, she's just in like a scene or two maybe in most episodes. So I don't see her as a major character, but I kind of liked that she was the enigma the whole time. You know, you didn't know what she was thinking. Like, is her random babbling, is that genius? Because at times it would, she would prove herself to be this crazy eccentric genius kid, and sometimes it would benefit the crew, sometimes it would just be some frivolous thing that she's over there doing. So I guess I didn't rely on her to play a major role in accomplishing tasks, so to speak. I just liked her as an added piece of the texture of, their crew, basically. And I found her really entertaining. And so, yeah, for me, I guess it works just for variety's sake. I like that all these other characters just have these. I mean, I guess she does have a kind of a dark, damaging background, but the other ones as adults, I guess, carry that weight a lot more than a kid. And so it's nice to have a lighter character in the mix, so to speak.
Because you could say the same thing about Ein, that like he doesn't serve that much of a purpose. So it's like, oh, we could eliminate Ein, but then it's like you could look at Star Wars and be like, man, do we really need C-3PO? Now we could probably get rid of him. We just really need R2. C-3PO is just kind of there. Like you could definitely, I mean, you could look at any like team up crew movie and start eliminating the people that feel a little bit superfluous. And then that way you break it down to the core group. Like, yeah, you probably could have done this whole series with just Jet and Spike. You didn't even really need Faye when you really think about it. Because at the end, honestly, you might not even need Jet. You could have just had Spike like, oh, I'm a bounty hunter and I'm trying to escape my past, and it keeps drawing me back in. It drew me back in. Final showdown, show's over. Right? Like you could have done it that way. So I don't know. There's a part of me that definitely agrees. Like she's not the most useful of characters, I guess is the best way to put it. But I feel like she's necessary in her own regard.
Yeah. So what do you guys think about the general overarching story of the whole show? Like beginning to end, do you feel like it's cohesive, that it's well written? Like I've heard you guys both say that you feel that the ending's ambiguous. I don't think it's as ambiguous as most people do, but what do you guys kind of think of the general storyline of the whole 26 episodes?
Sessions.
I like
Sessions.
Sorry?
Sessions, yes.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I think it's really good. It starts off, a little bit weird because you don't really know what's going on until episode 4, I believe, that's when you actually get some bit of story and you're like, oh, okay, there's something going on. There actually is this thing. So I like that. And then you have it does. I mean, you really only have if you combine your two-parters into one actual episode. You only have 3 episodes of any sort of backstory,
Right?
And it's all for Spike.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, I think it works well. The space parasite episode is a little bit weird, just because it's also the only episode that ends with the end. So it doesn't end with a space cowboy. Right. It's just like the end. They all died. Congrats. Right. So yeah, that one's weird. So other than that, I mean, I think story wise it fits perfectly together. Unlike you, yeah, I do think it is, a little ambiguous because again, you don't actually know that Spike's dead. It is alluded to that he is dead. But here's the thing. He also, like we said, like when he fights Vicious, he also gets shot multiple times, stabbed, falls out of a window that's like 4 to 5 stories tall out of a clock tower.
Right.
Has that explosion that I'm sure propels him faster to the ground.
Probably.
Does a nice splat. Totally fine.
I mean, my deal is I don't want his final line to be wasted.
How's Bang wasted?
If he's alive, then it's just like, oh man, that would have been the perfect last words for Spike. And
well, he does bang throughout the series.
I know, but
the last
I think that would be the perfect like way to go out. Just handgun, bang, collapse dead, final words. Like if he comes to again, it's like that would have been cool, but I wasted it.
Well, didn't even the creator say that the people that thought that he is merely sleeping were probably right? So even he kind of leaves it that like, yeah, he's probably still alive, which I kind of like. I like the idea that like he says bang, and then if he does fall asleep or like passes out or whatever, it's because he's like finished the job. You know what I mean? So it's like it's not a bang, I'm dead. It's like a bang. Now this chapter is done. Like this session is done. I kind of like that, but I don't know. It is definitely more impactful if he is also no longer with us at the end of the series. But I don't know. I enjoyed it either way. I think I probably focused less on like I definitely wasn't losing sleep over like, oh, is he alive? Is he dead? It was more of just like, dang, that was a really good ending. That was a good way to send it off.
Yeah, I agree.
The only thing where he could possibly be dead, but it is again, it's also ambiguous because it could be Vicious as well.
Right.
Because we have the little Native American guy who is telling throughout the series that whenever you see that shooting star, it is a person who's a warrior soldier that's like moved on.
Right.
And at the end, you do see that one shooting star, which again could be Vicious, could be Spike.
Well, yeah, that's true.
Because it does
way.
happen for other people that aren't Spike, like our main characters. When you see that star, you're just like, oh, somebody else passed on.
Yeah, I mean, to me though, like because you watch the whole credits roll in that last episode, and the last thing you see, you see an image of Spike laying on the stairs, but then you see the image of the stars, and that one glowing star completely goes out. And I don't think they would. To me, I don't think they'd waste their time showing that for Vicious. I think that would represent Spike. That's just to me. I feel like to me that made it clear.
Well, see, the best part about the show is that there are like it does have an ambiguous ending where you can think one thing and then you can think something else.
That's
true. That's what makes a good show.
So my only problem with that last episode though is I really wanted the battle between him and Vicious to be longer. I do feel like it's a little short because they were trying to hold to that regular episode length. I wish it would have been a little longer.
Okay.
I will say one thing. I don't care about Julia.
Oh, no?
I'm glad that she dies. She seems like a crap character. Well, honestly, she does. Well, and like Vicious, like I love how like Vicious warns Spike like stay away from her. She's kind of she ain't good. And, Spike doesn't do it, obviously, and that's what leads to everything. But, yeah, I don't know. Like, I never, when Julia got shot, I was just like, oh, no. Okay.
Yeah, they don't spend a lot of time making you care about her very much.
Yeah, if it would have been a character that we cared about, like
Yeah.
if Faye got shot, and you're like, oh snap, they killed Faye.
Yeah.
That's when you'd be like, okay, I can, that would be cool. Or Jet gets shot, and you're like, oh crap, they killed Jet.
Well, I think
They kill Ein, and you're like,
yeah, series over.
Kill the dog.
But I think isn't that kind of part of it though? I don't think we're supposed to care about Julia. We're only supposed to care about Spike, and we understand that he cares about her. So it's not like, oh no, Julia got shot, I'm sad. It's like, oh no, Julia got shot. That was what Spike was trying to prevent. Like, he went back, was able to find clues to lead to her, and then finally being able to connect with her after all these years. Like, wasn't it? Because I didn't just recently watch the show. It's probably been a little bit, but it was like Vicious had told her that he was going to kill them both unless she went and killed Spike. So that's why she ran off and went into hiding. So it's like Spike kind of faked his death. Julia's just been missing. This is finally their moment to reconnect, and then it's all for naught. So it's like this whole story has built up to this moment that is so fleeting that I think that's where the heartbreak comes from. So it's not even that like, oh, when Spike is shot, is he dead? It's like, oh well, he's lost everything. What else does he really have to live for?
Yeah,
I love how
I
they
agree
John
with that
Woo
take.
it too.
Oh yeah!
Like, she
oh
gets
my
shot.
gosh,
Like,
that
no.
scene was
Yeah.
directed by John Woo. It's like, oh my gosh, this is so 1998.
So perfect.
That's hilarious. Yeah, I mean, I agree, and I think that the Julia character is one of the most prominent examples of the film noir influence on this series, because it's just classic that you just have this strong male protagonist, and there's this woman from the past that comes in and out of the scene and impacts that protagonist, but never really is a character that's developed. And I think that Liam, you nailed it in that we're not supposed to feel anything for or about Julia. We're supposed to feel the impact that it has on Spike, and I think they did a really good job with that. But I agree, it's like every time she popped up, I'm like, we know, just go away.
They did two really good AMVs back in the good old days, back when they did animated anime music videos.
Oh, okay.
Where they did a clip whenever she got shot. They did one for they did an Imogen Heap hide and seek. Like the what you say? Like she got shot.
No way!
And then they did another. I just died in your arms tonight. That was those were like two of the best ones.
Wow!
And
that's
I was
cool.
like, yeah, that's the only reason that scene stuck with me for so long.
Well, on that note, do we want to segue into talking about the music?
Oh, were we done with the story?
We can still talk about story.
You want? I was just going to talk about how bad bounty hunters they were. they
don't turn in a lot of bounties.
They bring in like 4 whole bounties
right.
the whole entire series. Everybody else either dies or they're just like, let them go.
Right. I feel like on the practical bounty hunting side, I feel like either we're just assuming that they're, turning in bounties along the way, but that's just not really what the story is necessarily about. Also, though, I feel like they do a pretty good job of showing the long stretches of time between getting a bounty, having somebody to go after, fishing for them like they do in that one episode where they're fishing for the pirates. I feel like
or actual fishing.
Yeah, I
food.
feel like, if you're traversing the vast sea of space, it's not just like, going around the street corner and catching a guy. I feel like it's, those things are going to be far and few between, and you're dealing with, that's why they don't have any food and things like that. But yeah, they're supposed to be these kind of romanticized bounty hunters, and yeah, I think we see them turn in maybe 4.
Yeah, I think it's 4.
Like the whole time. Yeah, so that's fair point.
Yeah,
but they do have Amazon delivery drones that deliver Betamax.
Right.
Which is pretty cool.
I do like the little continuing thread of the little silly bounty hunters show throughout it. And then in part 1 of the finale, you actually, because the show gets canceled.
Yeah, the show gets canceled.
And then you see him picking up his mom at the airport, and she's like, "Do you think you're going to get another show?" And he's like, "We'll see." I thought that was great. And he doesn't have his accent, so that he was totally putting that on for the show. I thought that was a fun little touch.
Yeah,
at the end.
I think so. I think so much of that though is like their failure at being proficient bounty hunters speaks volumes to the fact that like why Spike would have left the Syndicate, like left Red Dragons and whatnot, because when you look at Vicious would be what Spike could have been if he had lost his humanity, right? So you like when you look at Vicious as a character and why he's so good at being a mob boss is because he has no empathy. He's lost that side of himself that Spike almost desperately tries to hang on to. And I think that's why he's a terrible bounty hunter, because being a bounty hunter like would require you to have some like kind of a hard heart to be able to be like, oh, you know what? Money is worth more than your happiness or your well-being. And because you made this one mistake, I still need to get paid. So I think that the more that you see them failing, the more that you see why he was never going to become what Vicious was, or he was never going to be able to maintain that partnership with Vicious, because they were just diametric opposites.
Right. I agree with that.
Yeah.
I read a lot into this TV show, guys. I mean, there was a lot of underlying story to this. I think that's why it was like when you asked Gavin, like, "Hey, what'd you think of the story?" It was like I thought the story was great, but like the themes that were present throughout this, and just like you had kind of alluded to asking about what we thought about the music. And my God, this is easily one of the greatest anime soundtracks of all time. Brittany always classifies whether or not an anime is going to be good if the intro song is catchy. So like that's what has gotten her to actually sit through certain shows that she probably, if I just described her what the show was about, she wouldn't have sat through like Death Note, but she actually enjoyed the intro song. So she was like, yeah, we can watch this. Full Metal Alchemist got her to watch that because she loved the intro song. Trigon's kind of an outlier because it's just this very like Western hokey.
Yeah, it's like ba 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 ba, and that's all it is. Like there's no.
Yeah, and even the.
No vocals.
Yeah, even the music throughout the show is very just like weird honky tonk, not honky tonk, but like weird Western. And then this show is just like this, like the music is this blaring jazz, like it almost to me it always reminded me of like Johnny Quest. You know, like it had like the cool thematic music and whatnot. I don't know. It has like a Bond feel, but still jazzy and still catchy, and just every fight scene, every dog fight, like the martial arts sequences, just everything was so gripping. I don't know. To me, sonically, this is one of my favorite shows of all time.
Oh, absolutely. I 100% agree, and I sometimes feel like the music might be the very best part of this show. I feel like it is so important, like soundtracks rarely are. You know, soundtracks usually lend, something to a film or a TV show, but the soundtrack for Cowboy Bebop drives it and creates so much of the atmosphere and the feelings of everything that's going on. I think they made amazing, perfect musical choices. Just beginning with the intro song, which to me is my favorite opening probably of any show of any type ever. I adore the opening song and animated sequence for this show. In this age of streaming television shows and having TV on DVD or Blu-ray, most people, when they're binging a show, will just skip that intro, just to get right to the show. I can't do it with Bebop. I have to watch that intro every time from beginning to end. I love it. It's one of the greatest things, and it sets the tone for the show. It gives you pretty much everything you need to know to get excited about what you're about to see. And the song is just, it's so good. It's so freaking good.
I skip it.
Yeah, do you really?
Well, I mean, it's one of the. Here's the thing, guys. Like, I'm more into the anime stuff than you guys are, and it is in every single countdown. I know the song. Like, I understand the song. I got the song. I know it. Like, if I could play an instrument, I could play it. But I know the song. So when we did this one, and I had to watch 26 episodes, I'm like, I can skip 2 minutes. Like I can skip the end, the beginning, and I can skip the end, just because I know them.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm okay with doing that. It's not anything that's gonna hurt me in the long run.
Sure.
So I'm just like, yeah, beep 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 beep, skip it. the end goes, like once they do that "See You Space Cowboy" and the rose pops up, I automatically hit skip to go to the next episode.
Yeah,
because I'm like, I know this.
God, I can hear the music in my head right now, and like the blaring trumpets.
I can hear it.
Like I don't. It's just to me there is some like I will get up and freaking dance to that beginning music because it's so much fun. And I don't know. To me, I think it helps set the mood for what you're about to watch. So I don't know.
Well, the thing is though, like if you're binging it, you're already in the mood because you're in the mood for Spike, Jet, and Faye because you've just watched them for an hour and a half of Spike, Jet, and Faye, so you're already in there. So like I understand like if it was airing, then I would watch it. But
given the choice, it's
something that I've seen probably hundreds of times, and like I already know it, so I'm like, okay, I got you. I'm gonna go ahead and skip that.
No, I mean, I get that. I just feel like I've seen, this is probably my, I don't know, I want to say 4th or 5th full time watching all the way through the show. And I just did binge it this last week. I watched all the 26 episodes. And I mean, it might be my favorite part of the show. I love it so much that I just get a kick. Every time the intro kicks off, I'm in it. I'm zoned in and I watch it from beginning to end. And then, okay, so that's the intro, but the music that they do throughout this show is just so consistently good. They use so much jazz and blues in this.
They use that nice operatic when Spike is falling from
the bridge. Yeah. I mean, they make great musical choices in this, and I love the music of the 90s, and I feel like it was a very amazing era artistically for music, and there were so many great retro undercurrents in that era of music, one of them being, the big band jazz and swing stuff that hit in the mid-90s, and this kind of is just using all of that as a stepping stone and creating this amazing, backwash of sounds and feelings and just action driving music that I don't think it's equaled. I really think it's probably my favorite soundtrack, movie or TV. I think it's stellar, man.
Yeah. No, I'm with you 110%, man. The music for each episode just is it augments what you're already seeing on the screen. Like we talked about earlier, like the characters are so much fun. The style that the anime was done in is just so stunningly well rendered. And then to have this type of a soundtrack, which you never would have expected, which I mean you should, because it's Cowboy Bebop. Like you think they kind of lay it on heavy handed, but I don't know. I think this is why this show has stood the test of time, and it is probably most people's gateway drug into anime. I mean, you got to figure this was the first anime to ever make its way onto Adult Swim. So for majority of people in the United States, in 2001 was when it aired. Like this was your first foray into the modern anime versus any of the stuff you were able to import prior to that. So yeah, I mean to have this so complete of a show, this is why we're reviewing it for your 100th episode, right? Is because it's such a like a monster of a program.
So we talked about the music, but I think the thing that, to me, honestly, what made this such a hit in the US was the voice acting.
Oh yeah.
Because I mean, we had anime before, and I mean, you've got like your Tenchis and your DBZs and your stuff like that, which you're like, okay, that's voice acting. But this cast with Bo Billingsley and Stephen Bloom and Wendy Lee, it's probably the background characters, there's a lot of characters that are the exact same. Like Bo Billingsley voices a few, like he's actually the voice of Teddy Bomber. So he does that voice too. And then the guy's name, who I can't remember his name, but he does like Demi Devimon and Digimon, is like half of everybody else in this show.
Well, if you listen, you can hear Johnny Yon Bosch as one of the characters. I think it's like in the 3rd episode, I want to say, maybe the 4th.
Mona Marshall's in. She, like, if there's a child,
she's in there.
Mona Marshall is in it. She's She did the blind sister. She was a cult member. She was the little 10-year-old boy who never aged. Like, she does a lot of stuff. Like, she's in that show forever. But I mean, your 4 main people, they were cast so well. I mean, Ed, I guess you could really cast anybody as Ed. She's just kind of out there.
Oh,
she did like the voice actress is really good. I think it's Melissa Fawn, I believe. I can't remember her name. But yeah, is fine too. But I mean, your 3 main characters, Spike, Jet, and Faye. That is, to me, is what gives this show lasting success. Because no one's like, hey, do you want to go out and watch Outlaw Star? I mean, it's a great series, but that voice acting is a little... Maybe we watch it in Japanese. But as a starter anime for people, and there are some problems with, lip flaps and everything like that I've noticed in, like, rewatching the show. But even then, it's still great. The voice acting is phenomenal, and they did such a good job, and that's what I think will make this show stand the test of time, is their voice acting.
Yeah, I think especially in the case of Spike, I mean, he's just so iconic in every single way, right down to the voice. And I honestly think both casts, the original Japanese cast and the American cast, were just phenomenal, just really phenomenal. I agree. I really liked Ed's character. I think the only one that I had some problems with was Jet, because I feel like there are some times when he comes off a little corny.
Yeah, he's a cop.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. But, I love the warmth of his voice, though, too.
Yeah.
I think it's great. And I agree. I think among... the dubs that I've partaken in, it's definitely up there as one of the best, especially for television where you've got, many episodes. I think there are some films that I think have been done maybe as good or a little better, but that's just like a one-shot kind of deal. So, yeah, I agree, though. I think the voice acting here is very accessible. I also don't think that they do a lot of over-the-top stuff, which a lot of anime, Japan is so different in their entertainment and their aesthetics and the things that they do in their shows, that a lot of times anime for the casual watcher can seem really over-the-top, and, like some of the noises that characters make and reactions that they have can seem a little zany, and I don't think that this show does any of that. No. So I think it's really palatable to the American audience, and yeah, it's the perfect crossover to the American audience, and it makes sense that was, like Liam described it, the gateway for a lot of people in this century to begin to consume anime. I mean, I know it was the very first one I ever watched, and I watched it on Adult Swim when it was on, and I was blown away by it. And so, yeah, it's kind of the perfect storm. They created this great story with great iconic characters. They put a great cast behind it, and yeah, they caught lightning in a bottle with it, and it may never be equaled.
Yeah, because I mean, like, if you look at it, something also like along that same ish genre, but more goofy, like if you do something like Trigun, and like, yeah, what you're talking about, you have a lot more of like the zany, like, whoa, and Johnny Young Bosch screams a lot, and he's like, ah! Like all the time. So yeah, comparing the two, but I mean, yeah, like Bebop is serious, it's funny, it's emotional, it has everything. It's basically NYPD Blue. Except there's no Sipowicz. I don't know, that was bad. But yeah, I mean, to me it's almost perfect. Like there are some parts where I'm like, yeah, whatever. There's definitely slow episodes. Like I told you, like I skip episodes. Yeah. Because I mean, it's one of those, like, I don't know how many times I've seen this series back to front. Yeah. But yeah, like just watching this, I'm just like, yeah, I'll skip this episode. I don't need to watch it. It doesn't really do anything for me. Like the mushroom episode doesn't really do anything for me. Like I'll always watch the like the little the Alien episode. I'll always watch that just because it's so good, and it's like it pulls so many things from Alien.
Yep.
Like when Spike goes in there, like he loses his lighter, and like there's poison gas, and he's like, "Oh man, I can't light the cigarette." Well, better go back in. And you're like, "Why?" Like, you have other lighters, surely.
That's hilarious. Yeah,
but no, sorry. I we didn't get Liam's perspective. Just kind of cut you off there.
No, you're good. I mean, it's I'm drawing a blank here. No, I think with my, like what we were talking about earlier with like Spike being like that, the kind of like the go-to hero, how everybody I think would initially be like, yeah, my favorite character is Spike. I think that Steve Blum had done such a phenomenal job voicing that character, and the way that he comes across is so engaging that it's like when you hear Stephen Blum in other projects, like when he's Zeb in Star Wars Rebels, you know what I mean? You're immediately like, oh yeah, no, I'm excited to hear this person.
Well, he was Tom forever on Toonami, and I think he's still Tom.
Yeah,
like he's the little
robot guy.
Yeah, who's like, hey, yeah, it's me, and you're like, oh yeah, it's Spike.
Nice.
Yeah, so I mean, like when you hear his voice, you know, I was a fan of, they did a animated series called Wolverine and the X-Men, where it's like Professor Xavier and Jean Grey are missing, and so Wolverine has to lead them, and friggin' Stephen Blum does the voice for Wolverine. So it's like even little things like that, you're just like, yeah, I'm on board. I don't know. To me, it's Spike is such an iconic character, and so much of that, at least here in America, is because of the voice acting that was done, not just for everybody within the show itself, like you said, with Bo Billingsley and was it Wendy Lee, but also with what Steve Blum did. I mean, I will forever want to see more done with that character because of his performance.
Yeah.
I like that. Like a lot of Steve Blum's marketing, like because I mean he knows you hit lightning in a bottle. You're like, I'm going to capitalize on that.
Yeah.
He sells shirts, and like his business card, it's the sound wave of his last bang.
Oh,
and I'm
wow.
like, that's super cool. Like
Clever.
I kind of want one of those shirts because it's just sound wave, and then you're like just bang right underneath it. And you're like, that's super cool.
That
like
is cool.
I should get one of those.
That's
it's
very
really
cool.
So do
Nice.
you? I mean, I know we alluded to it earlier, but do you want to kind of talk real quick about like the ending of the show and like where do you really think this finished off?
Yeah.
I mean, I think he's okay. I mean, he survived worse. He survived a crazy assassin clown thing in Perot, and you're like, yeah,
That was
he's
awesome.
all right. He'll be fine.
At what was it called? Spaceland?
Yeah.
That was so cool.
That's such a good episode.
That's a great episode.
And he's been shot multiple times. He'll be fine.
That was the one where I felt like it was kind of like a Batman type villain.
It was.
You know?
It's super Batman villain.
Just kind of zany, off the wall villain.
Yeah, it's one of those. There's still that part of me that's really weird, and it doesn't make any sense because there's really nothing double-sided in the whole entire series. But it really hit me when like Faye tries to stop him at the end. And it's like you're just gonna go die, and because of some girl, and you're like, man, Faye, I was with you until you brought the girl up, but now he's going to. Good job. But yeah, like I loved their interactions together, especially in that last scene. Like there's not a lot of like you really get zero hints throughout the whole entire thing that there's any romantic thing between the two, and there's really no romantic thing between the two of them at all. But there is a caring between the two,
Right.
because like she does go to his rescue, like in Spaceland. Like he's like, I'll do this by myself, and she comes in. He goes and rescues her from the cult.
Right.
So like there is this like mutual thing between the two, and I mean it may not be romance, it may just be like a caring. But I did like their interactions because like with Jet, it's one of those where it's like he's just gonna let Spike go off and do his thing. Like
Yeah.
he's a big boy. He's just gonna let Spike go.
See, I almost read that scene as little sister, big brother.
Oh, it very much is. Like that's what I mean. Like it doesn't have to be romantic.
Yeah.
It could be like there is a mutual concern and a care between the two.
Yeah. Yeah, and but it did stand out. You're like, wait, this is not like
Yeah,
any
it's-
sort of
it's-
conversation they've ever had before. So that was kind of weird. But I feel like the ending to me is clear. I think Spike is dead. I have no idea what that means for the rest of the Bebop crew, whether or not, they get some sort of special exemption because technically Spike died as the leader of the Red Dragons or whatever.
Right, because isn't it that, is it Lynn? Lynn?
Yeah, the brother.
Yeah, because Lynn tells him before he dies that he's like, okay, well, if you kill Vicious, you're the default leader of the syndicate. So I think that's why everybody led to that, okay, him saying bang to like as the other members were kind of closing in, is him saying like bang, as I die, this syndicate dies, because there's nobody else to take leadership for it, so everything is done at this point. So that's the way that I read it when I first watched it, is like, oh, well, he had to die because it was the only way to end the syndicate. Otherwise, he'd have to be the leader regardless of whether he wanted to be or not. It was just going to fall to him. So yeah, I think that's the way that...
Which, I mean, in all honesty, though, that means nothing if one syndicate goes, because, I mean, there's multiple other syndicates.
But he's not a part of those.
I know, but it's just one of those where it's like, to me, that doesn't really do anything. Like, if you're just, like, ending the syndicate, it's like, well, yeah, they'll just go work for the next one.
Yeah.
Or just rebuild the Red Dragons and put, like, Lynn in charge.
Yeah.
Because I don't think Lynn died. He kind of, like, was fighting people off, and then, like, he kind of, like, held them back so Spike could rush up.
Yeah.
But that was about it. Like, I
don't think
he
we
ever
see
gets
him
shot.
after that.
No.
So we don't know.
Wait, is it Lynn? Is it Lynn or Shin?
I don't remember, because there's two guys that look exactly
they're
the
brothers.
same.
Yeah, they're brothers. Yeah. I don't remember.
I don't know.
Yeah, so I feel like one of them died, and then the other one... I feel like the other one does get shot, and like as he's dying, he tells Spike like, hey, if you kill Vicious, like you're the leader now. Like I don't know, but yeah, that's the way that I read it. And regardless, I mean, it's a valid point, Josh, that you're saying like, hey man, there's other crime syndicates. Like this is a world of crime now, so they're just going to go do something else. But Spike was never trying to stop all of the syndicates or all the mob bosses, just this one.
Well, see, but here's the thing: is he trying to stop the Red Dragon, or is he just trying to stop?
I think he had an understanding that, kind of that like blood in, blood out mentality that like, look, you're never fully out of this until you're dead. And then he realized like, look, if the only way that I can get out is by dying and killing Vicious, I can end this syndicate, then my death will have meaning. And I didn't just die for nothing. Like, I think that was kind of where, like I said, I mean, that's the way that I read it initially. But, having watched it so many times, then especially when they came out with Knocking on Heaven's Door and getting that ability to return to these characters, I was like, well, I don't want them to be dead. I just want more Bebop stories. Like, tell them forever. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I see what you get. But, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I completely see that reasoning and that verge there. I see it. But it's also one of those where it's like, the Red Dragons didn't really care about Spike.
No,
like they never tried to like if it's blood in, blood out. It's like they never
tried to track him down.
Just left him. They left him alone. The only reason that he even got involved again was all Vicious.
Yeah.
So, like, yeah, I think the Red Dragons, like, even if he kills Vicious, goes bang, collapses, and then comes back, it's like I don't think they would do anything to him. Just be like, oh well, bye. It's like,
right,
because they still have those three actual like heads of the Red Dragon that are just kind of those old dudes that are like same old guy voice in every single anime of that time frame.
Right.
Like they were in Ghost in the Shell, they were in everything. Like a couple, like one of them's in Digimon, and it's just like, oh yeah, it's just old man voice. That's what we need right now. And they're like, okay, good, old man voice. So yeah, so I think they're like, I don't think they ever died. I don't think Vicious killed them.
I feel like Vicious. Well,
I know
him
he killed
one,
a lot of people,
but I feel like it's insinuated that he does away with all four of them.
Yeah, maybe. Who knows?
Because you don't see them at the end either. You see the remaining few that are left that were loyal to Vicious, and that's it.
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah, I mean, like so many things in the show, some of those details are left ambiguous, and I think all of those things
doesn't matter really. I mean, that's why it's ambiguous, because it's like,
right.
But I think that goes back to the fact that a lot of these things that are these details that are left unexplained just lend to the general kind of romance of the show, and how they've romanticized the lifestyle and the era and everything about it, really. So to me, I kind of am fine with having a few loose ends at the very end of the show. Whether or not you think Spike survives, I mean, I could be fine either way. I just think it makes a prettier picture if he dies at the end. But yeah, I mean, I could go either way with that.
I mean, it definitely fits the character, but
yeah, I kind of feel like with the other characters, I feel like Ed has gone off on her own, and I don't know if she went back home or what she's doing, but I feel like with Jet, I could definitely see him maybe somehow going back to the Force, like
he did his stint, and then now
it's like, okay, yeah, now I'm gonna go back and be like chief of police or something, something like that, and then I don't know what Faye would do after.
She'd just go back to being Faye.
I really have no idea.
Go bet on the ponies more,
she lost.
Yeah,
she lost their money how many times because of betting? So I think.
Right. Well, there's that whole episode is like her winning. She's like, oh, at the racetrack, and like, oh.
Yeah.
And she's like, I'm gonna go bet on the dogs. They're way better. And she wins twice, and then she has that stack, and she just loses it all. And you're like, oh well, I mean,
that's how it happens.
Betting's luck, and you're like, yeah, why did you do it?
Oh my god!
But yeah, she's like irredeemable. She's just going to be the way that she is. So yeah, I see her falling right back into the same routines.
Yeah, I mean, poor girl. I mean, she's stuck out of time. So
hey, Captain America was, and he learned a way to deal with it. So she can deal with it. Get herself a shield.
He's also a fictional.
Oh, that's
character.
right. I forgot that Faye is in real life.
She could be. Well, she also doesn't have any sort of superpowers, and
right.
One of them does have
one of her superpowers is to be able to fight in that outfit. That is her superpower.
With the ultimate wedgie.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. The one thing we didn't hit on at all yet is the artwork in this show. What do you guys think about the quality of art and animation?
It's good. Some of the bad guys kind of look the same.
Yeah,
kind of not
henchmen.
The actual villains.
Like actual villains. Like the big tall dude with the fro who had Ein. Mm-hmm. Like he looks like the assassin on the prison ship that Jet kills.
Yeah, I can
who
see
also kind of looks like, oh crap, I can't remember his name. But there's another dude that looks remarkably similar.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's like they kind of look the same. Andy and Spike look pretty much identical.
Yeah, but I think that was intentional. Yeah, because they're kind of two sides of the same coin.
But I mean, that's kind of the issue with a lot of anime, right? Like you look at Trigun, and it's almost every villain. Like, well, it's whether it's brilliant lights, neon, or what's the guy that he finally like loses it? The first of the. Oh crap!
The whatever.
The guy that has the Gatling gun, right? And he like completely mows down the town. It's like, hey, here's a taller guy with a sharp pointed nose, a huge upper body and smaller legs with a giant gun. And you're like, okay, well, that's pretty much the hero, or that's pretty much all your villains. But you could make that argument for even some of the heroes, where you're like, oh, here's Vash the Stampede, blonde guy in a red coat. Oh, here's Edward Ulrich, blonde kid in a red coat. Like there is definitely some redundancy to character design, but I think like what we were talking about before with like I think Josh had mentioned the way that Spike walks, right? Like his swagger, his sway, the voice acting, the way that each character fights is definitively different. It's not like the same series of movements. So I think that's what differentiates so much of the characters. But I think the sleekness of the design, like we talked about earlier with the starships, the way that they are all rendered is just, to me, it's fantastic. I think visually this is probably one of the best animes, even though I love Trigun because of the story, because of the voice acting, because so much of it. I think maybe the design work in this one is a little bit better, just because it is, I don't know, it's so defined in the way that it was done. And I almost feel like it is that it's replicated but never duplicated type thing. Like, people tried to bite on that style, but nobody's ever going to be Cowboy Bebop.
Yeah, I agree with that. I feel like the design aesthetic of this is very well conceived, and it's very consistent. I don't feel like there's ever a character that you feel like, oh, this character doesn't really fit here. It doesn't really look like it belongs in this universe. I think everything kind of fits in seamlessly, and I feel like a lot of times, especially with TV shows, you have to kind of recycle a little bit just because of time and budget. So I can kind of forgive some of the villains looking the same for the most part. For me, I also really enjoy the environments, though. All of the different planets and locations that they go to, they all kind of have their own little look. We see really neat, gritty cityscapes and like there's that one episode, The Waltz for Venus, where you see all those little floating islands above the city.
Avatar.
It is kind of Avatar, yeah. But I just
Hallelujah Hills.
Yeah, really, really neat, cool environments that they go to, and I just love it, and I think it's even more so in the movie. Like the artwork in that is just ridiculous, but I think they do a great job for a TV show. I'm not really big into television animation because I feel like the quality is always a little bit less than you get in feature film animation. And, it's because of time constraints and budget constraints, and it's understandable. But this one feels so cinematic in most episodes that I'm just entranced by it. I think that they created a great look from top to bottom, and I enjoy it very much visually. There are a few times where the character animation looks like it was rushed a little bit, but they're very far and few between. And I actually think for 1998 they did a pretty good job of using CG in this show as well. There's a lot of shots of especially panned out shots of the planets and the system of gates that they used, where they're using computer graphics, and they do it really well for this being a show that's 20 years old. They're pretty seamless. They don't jump out at you, like the Hydra in Hercules, which was the year before this,
97,
2 years before this, yeah, where it just pops out. You're like, whoa, that wasn't drawn by hand at all. And I think the Japanese animation studios have been far ahead of the American studios in doing that. We've talked about it a number of times on the show when we talked about Padma and Boy and the Beast. They integrate CG with 2D animation so well. They just do it right. And I appreciate that in this show. So visually, I think this is fantastic.
Yeah, I think animation-wise, the walking animations are always great. And I was telling Gavin that whenever anybody pulls a gun in this series, it looks so good and crisp.
Yeah.
Like people should be pulling guns. I think I could be wrong on this, but whenever I remember Faye pulling a gun, she doesn't pull it up here. It would be constricting for she doesn't pull it eye level to be constricting. Hers is kind of like chest. Because I guess that would mean because she can't pull her arms all the way up. Now when she one hands it, she pulls it all the way up. But when she draws on somebody, it's chest level, and then she'll slowly go up. But I think maybe
that little red shirt.
Yeah, I think maybe they take into account
her elbows.
Her movement,
her shirtness.
I'll have to pay attention to that next time I watch. Yeah, you're probably right.
But yeah, I think that's what it is.
That's funny.
But yeah, the fighting is fantastic. All the space stuff looks good. Everything looks lived in. Nothing looks like it's oh look, we made this just for this one shot and then we're gonna get rid of it.
Right.
And yeah, everything looks nice and good. There's dirt and rust in places that you expect them to be dirt and rust. Yeah, it just looks so good.
Yeah, the attention to detail is so good. Like when they're, in a location that's only in one episode, they fully develop that location. It's not cheap ever.
They're in Callisto for 2 episodes, and you can tell that, you can see, like, the way that everything looks. Like, you can tell that there was, like, a sudden snowstorm that just completely snowed out the entire planet. Because you have high-rises that are in the process of being built that have just been abandoned because they're like, oh, snap, snow. We should just quit. And so that's what they do, and it just looks so good.
Yeah.
Like, everything looks like it has a purpose.
Mm-hmm. I agree. All right, you guys want to rate?
You have any favorite episodes?
Oh, okay, we can talk favorite episodes, yeah.
Gavin?
I mentioned the Waltz for Venus, which I really like. I also like the Mushroom episode. God, there's so many good episodes. I like the episode with Andy. I think that one's hilarious to me. The fact that Spike just gets so frustrated by Andy the whole time is like, he's just so pissed at him because Andy keeps mistaking him for the mark. And it's like, oh my gosh.
And I love how Jet and Faye like comment on that, like, he's just mad because it's him.
Yeah, exactly.
And then at the end, Spike's like, yeah, he's not a bad guy. He's...
It's so good. Man, it's hard to pick one. It really is.
I think I was going to say, I think most people would probably, Stray Dog Strut, obviously, because it's your introduction to Ein. So I think that's just like a really fun episode. Obviously, Honky Tonk Woman. But my favorite definitely has to be Mishmash Blues.
Which one is that?
Because of when this aired in Japan, it was actually canceled for a little while because of the violence that was happening in Japan. So they did like this weird episode where it was basically like the characters just doing like exposition, like talking about like hypothetical and like theoretical things. And then it just sort of ended with like, this is not the end. You'll see the real Cowboy Bebop someday. Like, they literally were just like, well, sorry guys, like, here's a lot of philosophical BS, and maybe someday you'll get to watch the rest of this show. Like, it was so weird. I had to search to find it, though. Nice. Like, I had heard about it, but I hadn't seen it, so I had to search to actually find this episode, but it's freaking...
Ooh. Yeah, I think it's on the DVD.
Oh, man.
I really liked Boogie Woogie Feng Shui.
With the...
That was a good one.
Is that the one with Jet?
Yeah, where Jet meets up with the
she's
girl.
She's like an expert in Feng Shui. Yeah.
Yeah, and her dad was like this Feng Shui wizard, and they meet him in like a portal in space. It's such a sci-fi episode. I love it.
Star Trek 5.
Yeah, it is. They're like traveling in a wormhole for half the episode. I loved it. I thought that was a great one.
What's the one that we watched?
That was Waltz for Venus.
Waltz for Venus?
Yeah.
Well, it's great because like watch this episode and it is almost an exact same storytelling of a Samurai Champloo episode.
Oh, really?
That Watanabe does as well.
Right.
Where the boy is trying to steal, but he has a sick mother.
Oh, okay.
And he only steals so that
his
he can get
sister's eyesight,
the medicine or whatever,
her medications. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So yeah, basically the exact same storyline. Yeah. So it's like, well, that just seems. I guess it's effective, but it's also like, hey, you did it. You did it already. You did it back in '98, so it's a little bit newer. But no, I really like the Perot episode with the assassin. That one's
really
probably
good.
It's up there with one of my favorites. But then I also like the
Toys in the Attic. Yeah, that one's so
Toys in the Attic. Yeah, that's a good one.
It's so good.
I like that one too.
You say like, so what happens if you get bit? And be like, you probably die. You're like, oh no, I'm too young. You're like, you're like 80. So.
That's true. Yeah, there's so many good ones.
I like the fact that the titles that they go with, you know what I mean? Where it's like we said, like Stray Dog Strut, Honky Tonk Woman, Jupiter Jazz. The fact that they use My Funny Valentine as a title, like
they use
Bohemian Rhapsody, which I really wanted to like that episode more than I did, just because I'm such a big Queen fan. And it's like it's a good episode, but it's definitely not like my favorite episode.
Yeah. Yeah, unlike Josh, I don't have any that I skip, but I probably haven't watched it quite as many times as Josh. It's so hard. I feel like every time I do watch through it, there's a different episode that kind of stands out to me as like, oh yeah, this is really, really good. So next time I watch it, there's probably going to be 3 or 4 others that I'll be really into.
Yeah.
It's just got so much. There's so much to it.
I guess there's really no point in us ranking this. I mean, pretty sure what we're all going to give it.
I mean, is anybody not going to give it a 5?
No, this has to be a solid 5 clouds for me. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a 5.
Yeah.
So
it's
5 dippers, 5 Jiminy Crickets, 5 clouds.
God, seriously, I'm gonna just go watch it like right now because I'm just having talked about this for almost 2 hours. Like I'm ready to go dive right back in again.
Yeah. It's so fantastic. I want to watch the movie because I just finished watching the show. I want to rewatch the movie. And, it really was the perfect place for us to start this show. Mm-hmm. Having Cowboy Bebop be the first movie, it gave us a feature film, it gave us anime, and it really was a good place for us to, just kick it all off.
We should re-record that episode.
What?
It's on old equipment.
Yeah, it is. The sound quality's not that great.
It sounds bad.
We had good conversations, though. It was fun.
It was a good way to kick off this podcast, you guys. And it was a movie that had Spike Spiegel fighting in a hallway with a mop. So, I mean, let's just...
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Very
let's
Jackie
go back
Chan.
to reminisce on the brilliance of the fight scenes in that freaking movie. Even, like, the opening, like, drugstore fight scene. Like...
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
That's so great. I love that. It's probably that's the thing that I remember with Cowboy Bebop, and I said it in the like in that episode.
Mm-hmm.
Like I love that "What's Up" song that they sing, which is like the random people just singing and Spike's just like walking through, just like do 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 do, and everyone's just like "What's up?" Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah, it's really amazing. I'm very proud of what
I'm about to say. You can't gloss over 100 episodes, you guys. And I know it's technically more than that because of like the cartoon cafes.
It's like
but it's honestly it's awesome that you guys have stuck with it this long. With the work that I've done outside of like Cloud City Cast and like writing intros and outros for other shows. Like there's kind of this rule of thumb where most shows either last 6 episodes or 6 months, like whichever happens first. So the fact that you guys have been at this for so long, the fact that you've hit 100 episodes, that you've developed as like podcasters, I mean it's not anything to shake a fist at. Like this is a huge accomplishment, and honestly, it's like I'm honored to have been present. Like even though obviously I wasn't on like that first episode or anything, but like being around and knowing that like even if I could just offer advice here or there or pop on the show when I was available or Brittany to do that, like. It's been an honor, and as much as I like to banter and argue with you guys, like I fully appreciate you guys.
We're still in the middle.
Oh, we definitely are.
By the way, just want to let
we
you know,
definitely
we're
are.
still in the middle of that.
But no, I appreciate you guys having me on this episode. It's been a blast. And here's to 100 more.
Well, I mean,
absolutely.
And then you're done.
Yes.
200, and then that's it.
Yeah, 200. We're done. I can't go any past that. But I mean. You're pretty like Cloud City is like the reason that we really started getting into podcasts because like my first episode with you guys, we hadn't done the podcast.
No,
we hadn't started it yet. And Gavin's first, you guys hadn't started the podcast.
Yeah.
So I mean, like getting on with you and talking with you guys was one of the reasons that we started this. So
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, thanks so much to everybody for listening. It's been great. We've met a lot of cool people. I've met a lot of cool people doing these interviews.
Yeah. And
I don't know, like there's a part of me that wants to do another episode, like another podcast that's just Josh's interviews. I just want to call it just Josh.
Oh, nice.
It's just me just interviewing people.
I like it.
But that would be hard.
Well, yeah, I definitely thank you to all the listeners and subscribers, who've tuned in. Some people from the very beginning. It's amazing that you've stuck around with us this long. But we totally appreciate it. We appreciate the interaction and, just the fact that you dig tuning in to listening to us nerd out about animation. It's awesome. We do it because we enjoy sitting around talking about this kind of stuff. And what's cool is that, Josh now has a group of co-hosts. So I feel like we get a good variety on the show, and we talk about a much greater variety of topics on the show now. And, you throw in all the interviews that Josh does. And I mean, on the episodes when I'm not on, I definitely still tune in because I feel like we've created a pretty quality show. And I think a lot of that is because of my super host friend here, Josh, who has really just turned this into something that is as viable as it is. So nice job, Josh.
Thank you.
Thanks
for being on a good amount of them.
Well, I'm still here now and again. Like I said, you've got a group of co-hosts, so you've got a team at your.
And to be fair, the fact that Gavin put up with you for as long as he did, like, he deserves an award just for that. That's why I only come on like once every couple dozen episodes, and then it's like, all right, I've had my fill of Josh. Josh has had his fill of me.
Enough.
Time to move it along.
Yeah, that happens a lot. I was going to go in here and be like, thanks to all of I'm just going to say thanks to all of our listeners across the globe, because I was going to do a thing where we used to name...
That's like 50 countries.
There's 66.
66
where
countries?
we used to, go through... Back when there was like 30 of them.
Right.
And it was still a while, but now that there's 66, I'm like, just thanks everybody for listening. It's been great. So yeah, like Liam said, thanks for 100. Here's to 100 more. And then we stop.
You're here. No.
Episode 200.
I mean, we hit 100. Let's go for 1,000.
1,000?
Hey, now...
Well, I mean, if we hit 200, we only have like 80 episodes.
Yeah, right. Hey, I like finite episodes, so let's do hard stop 200. Cloud City Cast has a hard stop
Start
at 300.
writing the finale
and only
now.
people that listen to this show will know that at 300 we're done. I am so... No, I'm just kidding.
That's hilarious.
Oh, man. So, Liam, again, thanks for coming on.
You can find me at Citizen of Disney. Oh, wait, no, that's my wife's. You can find me at
You can find him on the iTunes store at Honor Bright.
No, you can find me at Cloud City Cast for the show that I do with my amazing co-host and wife, Brittany, and then also our son, Remy. And then you can find me individually at Liam Bright.
Kevin?
You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Gavin Audison Art, on the web, gavinaudisonart.com. And you can check me out on another podcast I co-host on called The Podcateers.
And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Josh L. Kane. You can find the podcast on Instagram at Animation Station Podcast.
On Twitter at Animate Podcast.
On Facebook and Tumblr at Animation Station Podcast.
On the website, animationstationpodcast.com.
And you can also find all of our episodes on iTunes, Stitcher, and Podbean. And also on the website, just click on the little podcast tab, and that'll launch everything that we currently have.
Mm-hmm. All 100.
All 100. Well, all 117.
Yes. So there are some extras.
Let's see. Our last anime episode, conveniently, we talked about her in this episode. Mm-hmm. Our last day of anime, the 31st of May. So this Thursday, we have episode 101, which is my interview with the extremely talented Mona Marshall, who has been in voice acting since the 70s.
Wow.
So she has had a full career, isn't stopping. She was Izzy in Digimon, one of my favorites. She played Little Crazy Assassin Boy in this. She's been in everything. So, yeah, be sure and check that one out, guys. And, yeah, I mean, that's pretty much all I got. So, yeah, thanks again, everybody. Thanks for coming on, Liam. He's playing with Remy. He didn't hear anything.
That's how I roll.
So yeah, thanks again, guys. So for the Animation Station Podcast, I'm Josh,
and I've been Liam, and you've been Cloud City Cast.
Bye, everybody. Oh no, we've been casted.